But without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the floor the guest, the illustrious griot, Delbert Blair. Delbert, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us again.
Tamara Westwood, it's always a pleasure. Don't have it experienced too often, but when I do, it's a, what can I say, it's compensatory for all the times that I didn't get a chance to see and talk with you. And as you described your weather, I can finally say, even in Chicago, we had a beautiful day. And that's very difficult. But, yeah,
well,
wish I was there.
That's my home. So I know all about Chicago's weather, so I'm glad that it's beautiful there as well.
Yes, so it's a better day all over the earth, though, when people begin to come into consciousness once more and begin to stand against some of these nefarious deals that are going on. And there was an interesting thing too before we get into, I heard you say the main topic. That was a heck of a topic to try to even get into, but it was very interesting recently in the, of course, in Chicago, where sports people and most of our teams lose when they win just enough to keep you excited, but not enough to satisfy you. And what happened recently, they had Derrick Rose there. And, of course, he is a promise of the future. Now, I guess no one will ever replace Michael Jordan, but he was a promise of the future. So now the headlines of one of the papers here is called the Sun-Times, has him, he changed his grades were changed when he was going from high school to college. Headlines, big picture of him in the back. Then a second page, 4-column lead with 2 reporters. I looked at this. I wrote them to it. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna really make a fool out of them because here they had a cyclone in Bangladesh 3 days ago. 200 reported people dead. I know it's much bigger than that. Millions of people homeless. You got stuff happening with Kim Jong-il in Korea. The headlines, and of course he only made billions for the school when he went there. I'm saying, this is something sick about this place. Something sick about our country at this time. Very sick.
Well, you know what? It makes us wonder, as we are all, or many of us, have turned our attention to this nonsense, what's really going on? And certainly, I think that leads us right into our show topic, or at least part of it. We want to go into some really deep topics. You didn't really want to go into it last time, but this is what's happening today. We want to go into the origin of the human race here. There's a lot of talk about Nephilim and the Anunnaki. There's a lot of talk about that the Caucasian race was grafted or created. I'd like to go into a lot of that, and I know you have some information.
Well, I'm looking at it from the broader perspectives of metaphysics, which puts this planet back billions, if not trillions of years old. I have no idea how old this planet is. I do know that a billion figure would be minuscule. It would be kindergarten. So how many billions of years this planet has been around, incorporating what we call time as years, I don't know. So let's just say, as they do in some of the Star Wars trilogies, in a galaxy a long, 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 long time ago, there seems to have been a group of creatures that came from the 4 points of this galaxy, not the cosmos, but this galaxy. And they each brought in an area of understanding. So if you look at the galaxy as a circle, and then they all came from the 4 points of that circle, it would cause a cross to be made, each one bringing in 90 degrees of comprehension. And at the center of that was supposed to be the ability to make and understand how planets are made and to set up the seeding of those planets. So now whatever time we're talking about, 1 million years ago, billion years ago, from the 4 corners of this galaxy came an intelligent race, and there were 4 of them that came together to bring in the 360 degrees of understanding to create a planet, each one with 90 degrees of comprehension. The catch was that they were mind creatures. They didn't have physical bodies. As in the beginning of all things, there is no such thing as physicality being the origin of anything. It is the end results of some things that the mind sets in force, if you can follow what I'm saying on that one. So these were not creatures with bodies. They were mental, and they could create from wherever they were the kind of apparatus or even bodies that they would need. So they were light beings. They were mind creatures. They had no physical body. Since they were now working on what was to be said a third dimensional, a high second and a low third dimensional thing. They had to learn how to create matter and how to seed it. So this is what they were in the process of doing. These 360 degrees of comprehension now. It's like a scout troop went out there, an advanced scout troop to make a planet and work it. So they were working on this. How long they were working on this, I have no idea. But they were told that have to make this planet so it would be in a vibration that many things could live on it. And what they were warned about was it would have a sun, because this would be a sun system in this particular solar system, and that's what solar means, sun system. And they came from worlds that had no sun. They were called dark worlds, as we're now beginning to hear the use of dark matter once more, when metaphysics has talked about this for as long as I've read it in this lifetime. So it's nothing new for people into the deeper study of metaphysics. So what they hated, or what they were, I wouldn't say hate, maybe that's the wrong tense or wrong word. They didn't like sun because they could create light whenever they wanted to the degree that they needed it. So they had to now learn how to build worlds that could take sun. So while they were working on this particular planet, so on and so forth, there's seemingly the sun reverse polarity here. The minor sun that they thought they had time enough to work around and get away from began to send out signals so it would grow, and it went through what they call a sun cycle while they were working here. They seemingly had used some kind of a contraption to make themselves somewhat physical while working on this physical planet, and it caused them to change. It caused them to get more dense. For instance, again, as we here talked about, I'm going as best as I can to make a long story as short as I can, but still not to lose the audience. Whether you believe it or not is a whole different thing. But it's as though
you're doing an excellent job. I mean, it's very clear, and I appreciate it because you're breaking it down so that I can understand it.
And hopefully I can too. So now, it means that these creatures now, if they made rock or begin to solidify physical corporeality, minerals into a rock, they could put their minds into the rock and then understand what the rock was doing or what the rock needed, because they were the rock. If they made water, they were the water. If they made trees, they were the wood in the trees. But they were not those things because they could put their mind wherever they want to. In other words, that's what we talk about many times. Did you put your mind to it? See, we use certain phrases, or they'll ask you again, well, where were you? Your mind was 1,000,000 miles away. And, of course, they talk about the speed of light being 186,000 miles a second, but you can be in your mind anywhere you want. There is no such thing as speed or time when you use your mind. So this is what we've got to understand, the difference between physical reality, which is a oxymoron, there's no such thing as physical reality, or the mental comprehension of physical reality. This is where we have to go with this. So while here, the sun began to amplify, magnify, or whatever you want to say it, and they got frightened because they knew that meant that if that sun energy was built for this particular planet and their minds were in it, their minds would be affected by this sun, and they might have to become locked into this place, and this is what they feared. So their comrades, I guess, which were holding fort in whatever they were doing out in space, saw this happening and started fleeing, like you might as well say with crazy people. They left, and they left them without, I guess you might say, putting into the transporter or fixing up the guys that they left down here working. So they ran out and left them, and then by the time they were working deeply inside this physical contraption called a planet, by the time they got to the surface, and I guess to beam aboard or do whatever they did, what they call actually traveling, what is referred to now as the, what do they call it, I can't think of the name they use for it now, but it's the, they were traveling with the Merkabah. Anyway, the Kabbalah.
The Merkabah.
Merkabah. There we go. And that's the vehicle
that in other words, Scotty, who was there, supposed to beaming them up, supposedly there to beam them up, had left them.
Yes. And the vehicle that they were using was a combined thought vehicle. It was called the Merkabah. Okay. The Mer means waves or flowing or energy flows. The Ka and the Ba is the soul and the mind. The soul and the brain, the Ka and the Ba. So they left with the overall Merkabah, leaving these individuals, Kas, or spirits, stuck here. So because of that, they then got caught up in a more or less low vibrational human type of a thing. That's the best word I can use for right now till I explain what human really means. So here they were. You might as well say fallen gods, a very advanced race of consciousness here to make a planet and got caught up in the planet